The champagne glass feels impossibly heavy in my hand, a fragile weight against the tremor starting in my fingertips. The room, a dizzying swirl of silk and forced smiles, tilts just slightly. My eyes are locked on the woman holding the microphone, bathed in the warm glow of strategically placed uplighting, her face a mask of practiced joy. My mother, and standing beside her, radiant in white, is my sister, Sarah. The air is thick with perfume and expectation. I can hear the low hum of conversations, the clinking of glasses, the generic celebratory music. But it all fades, like background noise on a poorly mixed track, as my mother clears her throat, a sound amplified and echoing across the room. This is it. The moment I've both dreaded and waited for my entire life. The moment where my existence in this family is distilled into a public statement, a final judgment passed down from the matriarch. My heart hammers against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate to escape. My breath catches, held hostage in my chest. The smile on my mother's face is wide, performative, the kind she reserves for important social occasions. It doesn't reach her eyes. Never does. I brace myself. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, it helps me more than you know. My entire life has been lived in the shadow of Sarah. Not because she tried to overshadow me necessarily. Sarah is Sarah. Easygoing, beautiful, effortlessly popular. The kind of person who glides through life while I stumble. From the moment she was born, she was the sun, and I was the planet in her orbit, defined only by my distance from her brilliance. Her first steps were celebrated with a backyard party. Mine were noted in a baby book, an afterthought scrawled in the margin. Her good grades were framed. Mine were met with a nod and a reminder that effort was important. Her clumsy drawings were hailed as artistic genius. My meticulously rendered sketches were interesting. It wasn't malice, not in the way you might expect. It was preference, an undeniable, palpable favoritism that settled over our home like a fine dust, coating everything, making the air I breathed feel perpetually thinner than the air she breathed. My mother, bless her complex, frustrating soul, wasn't cruel. She just saw things differently. She saw Sarah's conventional beauty and envisioned society pages. She saw Sarah's easy charm and envisioned advantageous marriages. She saw Sarah's desire for a traditional life and envisioned grandchildren and holidays filled with picture-perfect moments. She saw me and she saw what? Exactly? Something difficult? Something unconventional? Something she didn't understand? Maybe she just saw someone who didn't fit the mold she'd carefully crafted in her mind for what a successful daughter looked like. I was the stormy one, the quiet one who disappeared into books or spent hours alone building things with Legos, things that didn't make sense to her. I asked too many questions. I challenged things. I preferred the company of computers and circuit boards to tea parties and gossip. I was an anomaly, and my mother didn't like anomalies. Growing up, every report card, every extracurricular activity, every achievement was measured against some invisible standard Sarah had already met or surpassed in my mother's eyes. If I got an A, it was because the class was easy. If I won an award, it was because they were giving them out like candy that year. There was always a caveat, always a subtle diminishing of my accomplishments. I learned early on that her praise, when it came, felt hollow, like a consolation prize. The real celebration, the genuine, unrestrained pride, was reserved for Sarah. Sarah's prom dress, Sarah's college acceptance, Sarah's engagement ring. Each milestone was a public declaration of Sarah's inherent worth, and by extension, my comparative lack of it. It wasn't just about academics or social life. It was about fundamental compatibility with my mother's vision of the world. Sarah fit. I didn't. Simple as that. And that lack of fit felt like a constant low-grade betrayal. It chipped away at my confidence, piece by painstaking piece, until I built walls so high around myself, I sometimes wondered if I even existed outside of them. The emotional landscape of my childhood home was a treacherous terrain, and I learned to navigate it by becoming invisible, by minimizing my needs, by never expecting too much. especially from my mother. Expectation only led to disappointment, a lesson I learned very thoroughly, very young. I stopped bringing home trophies, stopped talking about my projects, stopped seeking her approval. It hurt too much when it was withheld, or worse, acknowledged with that distant, polite smile that said, "Oh, that's nice," before she turned her attention back to Sarah. University was my escape hatch. I chose a school across the country, not just for the program, but for the distance. Physical space felt like the only way to gain emotional space. I threw myself into my studies, into coding, into building things that worked, things that had undeniable outcomes, things that didn't require anyone's subjective approval to validate their existence. In the world of logic and algorithms, there was no favoritism, only results. It was a brutal, exhilarating freedom. I built my first startup in my dorm room, fueled by instant noodles and a burning need to prove something. Not to my mother, not anymore, I told myself. To myself. But deep down, a tiny, stubborn ember of that childhood need still flickered. Maybe, just maybe, if I achieved something undeniable, something big, she would finally see me. Finally understand. Finally be proud. The first few years were brutal. Failure was a constant companion. Pitch decks that went nowhere, prototypes that crashed, late nights that yielded only frustration. My family calls were brief, polite. "How's school?" my mother would ask. "Fine," I'd say. "Still messing with computers?" "Building a company," I'd correct, the phrase feeling both like a shield and a desperate plea for recognition. There would be a pause.
"Oh, well."
Sarah just got a promotion. Head of her department now. So exciting. And just like that, the conversation would pivot smoothly, effortlessly, back to Sarah. Back to the safe, understandable narrative of her life. My struggles, my ambitions, my small victories, they were footnotes, if they were mentioned at all. I stopped mentioning them. It was easier. It hurt less. The company grew, slowly, painfully. I hired a small team, moved into a cramped office space, learned to navigate payroll and taxes and the crushing weight of responsibility. There were moments I wanted to call home, to share a breakthrough, a new contract, a successful product launch. But the memory of those past conversations, the polite disinterest, the inevitable shift back to Sarah, held me back. I built my world in silence, a world that existed entirely separately from the one my family inhabited. They knew I had a company, vaguely. They pictured me fixing printers, probably. The scale, the ambition, the sheer work involved, it was beyond their frame of reference. Or maybe they just didn't want to expand their frame of reference to include me in a significant way. It was simpler to keep me in the box they'd built for me. The box labeled the other one. The wedding planning was a masterclass in exclusion. Sarah, understandably, was central to everything. My mother was in her element, orchestrating seating charts, floral arrangements, the perfect shade of ivory. I offered to help, multiple times. My offers were politely deflected. "Oh, sweetie, you're so busy with your computer things. We've got it handled meaning Sarah and mother." It was the same old dance. They waltzed through the planning process, a perfect, synchronized pair, while I stood on the sidelines, the awkward wallflower. The bachelorette party was a weekend getaway to a spa resort. I got an email invitation, CC'd along with 30 other women. I couldn't make it, a critical deadline looming. My mother called, not with concern, but with mild disapproval. "Oh, that's a shame. Sarah was really hoping you could be there. But I suppose your work is more important." The unspoken judgment hung in the air. My work, the thing I had poured my life into, the thing that was finally starting to yield real results, was framed as an obstacle to family, to sisterhood, to the normal female milestones my mother valued. It stung, a familiar, dull ache. As the wedding day approached, a strange feeling settled over me. It wasn't just the usual mixture of affection for Sarah and dread of spending prolonged time with my family. It was a sense of culmination. My life had been a quiet, relentless climb, a private battle fought away from their gaze. And now, here I was, standing on the precipice of something massive, Something life-altering for my company, for me. And they had no idea.
Absolutely no idea.
The acquisition talks had been confidential, a whirlwind of non-disclosure agreements and late-night negotiations. My team knew, of course. My key investors knew. But my family? They still thought I was messing with computers. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very thing my mother subtly dismissed, the thing she saw as a distraction from a proper life, was about to change everything. The day of the wedding arrived like a freight train. The chaos of the bridal suite, the nervous energy, the sheer volume of people. I plastered a smile on my face, adjusted the ill-fitting bridesmaid dress, a shade of pastel my mother had insisted upon, and played my part. I posed for photos, offering forced smiles while the camera clicked, capturing the perfect family portrait with a slightly off-center daughter trying to blend in. I made small talk with distant relatives who asked if I was still single and when I was going to settle down, their questions laced with the same implicit judgment I'd heard my whole life. I felt like an imposter, walking through someone else's dream, wearing someone else's clothes, pretending to be someone I wasn't, someone they could accept. The ceremony was beautiful, Sarah radiant, the vows heartfelt. I cried, genuine tears for my sister's happiness. Despite everything, I loved Sarah. This wasn't about her. This was about the ecosystem of our family, the roles we'd been assigned, the narrative that had been written for us. And as I watched her say, "I do," a quiet resolve hardened within me. The narrative needed to change. Not just for me, but for the future. Maybe, just maybe, if they understood what I had built, they would see me differently. Maybe the sheer, undeniable scale of it would finally break through the preconceived notions. Maybe. The thought was a dangerous one. Hope in my family context was a fragile thing, easily crushed. The reception hall was breathtaking, all twinkling lights and fresh flowers. The air buzzed with celebration. Dinner was served, speeches began. The best man was funny, the maid of honor sweet. Then it was my father's turn. He spoke of Sarah with warmth and affection, a tear glistening in his eye. He mentioned me briefly, a quick, and our other daughter, my name, who is doing well, before moving on. It was the usual, a familiar, low-grade sting. I took a slow sip of water, reminding myself to breathe. And now my mother stands at the microphone, holding her champagne glass. The room settles, hushed, expectant. She smiles out at the crowd, a picture of maternal pride. She talks about Sarah's childhood, her kindness, her beauty, her grace. She tells anecdotes that highlight Sarah's perfect nature, each one a subtle contrast to my own perceived flaws. The air feels heavier now, charged with anticipation. I know what's coming. The inevitable comparison, the public affirmation of Sarah's place and my own, lesser one. I grip the glass tighter, my knuckles white. Her voice, amplified, rings through the hall. And now, as we celebrate my beautiful daughter, Sarah, finding her perfect match, she pauses, scanning the room, her eyes passing over me without lingering. I want to raise a glass to the future, to family, to love, and to the joy of seeing our children find their path so far generic. But I know the cadence, the subtle shift in her tone. It's coming. We've always wanted the best for our girls. To see them happy, settled, successful in life. She takes a small sip of champagne. The smile on her face tightens almost imperceptibly. And looking at Sarah tonight, radiant, starting this wonderful new chapter. We know we did something right. My heart sinks. Here it is. The punchline I've been expecting my whole life. She continues, her voice gaining a little more volume, addressing the room, but her words feeling directed squarely at me. It fills a parent's heart with such pride to see one of their daughters truly find her place in the world. To build a life based on love and partnership, on traditional values. A life we can truly be proud of. One daughter we can be proud of. The words land like a physical blow. The low hum of the room disappears entirely. All I can hear is the blood rushing in my ears. The glass in my hand feels less like a weight and more like a weapon I'm struggling not to shatter. One daughter. The implication is clear, unmistakable. Sarah is the daughter of pride, and I am the other. The one who chose the unconventional path, the one who built a company instead of finding a husband, the one who didn't fit the mold, the one they can't be proud of. A cold, hard knot forms in my stomach. It's not just the words themselves, it's the setting. The public declaration, surrounded by friends and family at my sister's wedding. It's the culmination of years of subtle slights, of feeling less than, of being the perennial disappointment. It's the ultimate dismissal, delivered with a saccharine smile and a raised glass. For a split second, I feel the familiar urge to disappear, to shrink into myself, to become invisible as I've done so many times before. To let the comment hang in the air, to be absorbed into the general celebratory noise, to pretend I didn't hear it, didn't understand it, didn't feel the sharp, precise cut of her words. That's the safe option. The option I've always taken. But something snaps. The years of quiet frustration, of swallowed pain, of relentless effort poured into building my own world away from their judgment, it all coalesces into a burning, white-hot defiance.
No.
Not this time. Not here. Not like this. She wants to draw a line in the sand? She wants to publicly declare which side I'm on? Fine. Let's draw the line. Let's make it clear. My hand steadies. The trembling stops. A strange, cold calm washes over me, replacing the tremor, the racing heart, the nausea. My vision narrows, focusing solely on my mother, still smiling, still basking in the glow of her declaration. Sarah looks uncomfortable, a slight frown creasing her brow. My father looks away, into his drink. He knows. He always knows. I take a deep breath. The microphone is passed from my mother to the next person on the list, Sarah's new father-in-law. He begins to speak, his voice warm and welcoming. But the sound doesn't reach me. I am moving, a silent, determined force in the periphery of the room's attention. My eyes scan the crowd. Our family friends, my distant cousins, my father's colleagues. People who have known me since I was a child, people who have always seen me through the lens my mother provided. People who just heard her categorize me as the daughter not to be proud of. I walk towards the head table, towards the microphone. My path takes me past the wedding cake, past tables laden with flowers. Nobody notices me at first, or if they do, they assume I'm going to the restroom or getting a drink. I reach the table where the microphone is being passed. Sarah's father-in-law finishes his toast, and a polite round of applause follows. The microphone is set back on its stand. This is it. The point of no return. Every fiber of my being screams at me to stop, to retreat, to avoid the confrontation, the potential scene, the inevitable fallout. But the cold calm holds. It's a different kind of strength, one born not of courage, but of absolute, total exhaustion with being unseen, with being dismissed. I won't be the invisible daughter anymore. I reach the microphone stand. My hand is steady as I pick it up. A few people at the head table look at me, surprised. My father's eyes widen slightly. Sarah looks confused. My mother's head snaps towards me, the smile still frozen on her face, but a flicker of annoyance, of what is she doing now? Crossing her eyes. Excuse me, I say, my voice surprisingly clear, steady, amplified. The room quiets again, heads turning towards me. My mother's smile is gone now, replaced by a look of apprehension. She knows instinctively that I am not supposed to be doing this. This is not part of the script she wrote. I look out at the assembled guests, at the sea of curious faces. I find my mother's eyes. She looks furious, though she's trying to hide it behind a veneer of polite confusion. I'm sorry to interrupt, I say, my voice carrying through the silent hall. But my mother just made a toast. A very moving toast about pride, about daughters. I pause, letting the implication hang heavy in the air. My mother's face is pale now. Sarah looks genuinely distressed. My father looks down again. And it got me thinking. I continue, my voice gaining strength, confidence flowing into me now, a righteous wave, washing away the years of hurt. About what makes a parent proud. Is it fitting in? Is it following a prescribed path? Or is it building something? Creating something? Achieving something that goes beyond expectations? I hold their gaze, my mother's, my father's, Sarah's, and then I look out at the crowd again. A slow, deliberate scan of faces. My mother was right, I say, my voice softening just slightly, a touch of dry humor creeping in. Sarah has built a wonderful life. A life based on love and partnership, on values that are important to our family. And she deserves all the happiness in the world. I turn to Sarah and smile, a genuine smile this time. Congratulations, Sarah. I love you. Sarah offers a small, shaky smile back. My mother is rigid, her eyes narrowed, trying to figure out where this is going. She looks like a predator whose prey has suddenly turned around and started walking toward her. I turn back to the microphone, back to the room. The cold calm is absolute now. There is no turning back. The words come, not planned, not rehearsed, but rising from a place deep within me, a place that has been silent for too long. And as for the other kind of pride, I say, my voice returning to that clear, steady tone, the one that commands attention, the kind based on achieving something extraordinary, something unexpected. I pause again, the silence stretching, holding the room captive. I see the questions in their eyes. What is she talking about? What is this? My mother looks ready to snatch the microphone from me. Well, I say, a slow smile spreading across my face, a smile that doesn't quite reach my eyes, because this isn't about joy. This is about reckoning. Some of you might know I have a company. Been working on it for years. Small thing, just me and a few people messing with computers, right? I direct this towards a distant aunt who had asked about my computer things earlier. She looks flustered. It's called Innovatech, I state, using its formal name, the one that's about to be in the news. We build specialized AI software. I keep it simple. No need for jargon. And today, just a few hours ago, before I put on this lovely bridesmaid dress, I glanced down at the pastel fabric, a subtle visual cue. My company was acquired. I let that sink in for a moment. Acquisition. In the business world, it's a significant word. It means growth, success, validation. To most of the people here, it might not mean much on its own. But the next part will. It was acquired by Delta Corp, I say, naming a well-known, multinational tech giant. A ripple goes through the crowd. Delta Corp is a name everyone knows. A name that signifies scale, power, importance. I see my mother's eyes widen. She understands Delta Corporation. She understands what being acquired by Delta Corp implies. The final purchase price, I continue, my voice steady, clear, ringing with quiet power, was $200 million. $200 million. The number hangs in the air. For a second, the room is absolutely silent. And then, a collective gasp. A murmur sweeps through the crowd, a wave of shock and surprise. My mother freezes. The color drains from her face, leaving it ashen. Her eyes, fixed on me, are wide, unblinking, filled with a mixture of disbelief, shock, and something that looks very much like horror. Her mouth is slightly open. She is completely blindsided. The narrative she has clung to, the one where I am the lesser daughter, the unconventional disappointment, has just been utterly, irrevocably shattered by a number, a very, very large number. $200 million doesn't fit neatly into her preconceived notions. It doesn't fit into the box she built for me. It blows the box to smithereens. Sarah gasps, her hand going to her mouth. My father drops his glass. It hits the carpet with a muffled thud, thankfully not shattering. He stares at me, his expression unreadable, shock, certainly, maybe something else, something akin to awe. The murmur in the room swells, turning into excited chatter. People are whispering, pointing. $200 million? Delta Corp. Her? I stand there, holding the microphone, looking at my mother's frozen face, at her eyes that are now starting to fill with tears, not of joy or pride, but of something else. Something I can't quite decipher. Is it regret? Is it the sudden, painful realization of how wrong she was? Is it just the sheer, overwhelming shock of it all? So, I say, my voice quiet now, almost conversational, but amplified to reach every corner of the room. As my mother toasts to the daughter she can be proud of, I just wanted to share what the other daughter has been building. I don't say anything else. I don't need to. The silence that follows, after the initial shock and murmur subside, is deafening. It's a silence filled with unspoken questions, with shifting perspectives, with the irreversible recalibration of how everyone in that room sees me, and more importantly, how my mother sees me. I place the microphone back on the stand, my hands still perfectly steady. I glance at Sarah, who looks overwhelmed but offers a small, watery smile that feels genuine. Then I look back at my mother. She hasn't moved. She's still frozen, her eyes wide, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. The perfect, practiced smile is gone, replaced by something raw and exposed. In that moment, she looks smaller, diminished. I walk away from the head table, away from the microphone, and back towards my seat. The chatter starts up again, louder this time, directed at me. People reaching out, grabbing my arm, whispering congratulations, asking questions. The attention is overwhelming, disorienting. But underneath it all, there is a quiet, deep satisfaction that settles into my bones. I didn't do it for the money, not really. The money is a lot. It's life-changing. But the real victory isn't in the number. It's in that frozen expression on my mother's face. It's in the shattered narrative. It's in the undeniable proof that the path I chose, the path she implicitly disapproved of, the path she deemed less than, led to something she couldn't possibly ignore or diminish. It led to a success that, in her world, in the world of societal validation and achievement, is undeniable. The rest of the reception is a blur of forced smiles and awkward conversations. My mother avoids me for a while, her face still pale. When she finally approaches me later, it's not with an apology or an acknowledgement of her toast. It's with a hesitant, "We had no idea," her voice thin and shaky. "Why didn't you tell us?" I look at her, really look at her, and I see not just the woman who diminished me, but the woman who was trapped by her own narrow view of the world, by her own expectations. And for a fleeting second, I feel a pang of something akin to pity. But it's quickly replaced by the memory of one daughter we can be proud of. "You never asked," I say simply. And it's the truth. Not really. They asked about my computer things, but they never asked with genuine interest, with curiosity about what I was building, about what drove me. They asked already knowing the answer they expected. Something small, something incomprehensible, something not as significant as Sarah's conventional achievements. The air between us is thick with unspoken history, with years of misunderstanding and neglect. There is no grand reconciliation, no tearful apology. Just that thin question, that simple, truthful answer, and the chasm of years between us. Sarah comes over then, hugging me tight. $200 million? Are you serious? She whispers, genuine awe in her voice. That's insane. It is, I agree, hugging her back. This is easier. Our relationship, though shaped by the family dynamic, has always had a different quality. Less burdened by expectation, more rooted in simple sisterhood, despite the inherent rivalry the situation created. The wedding ends, the guests disperse. The confetti is swept away, the flowers wilt. But something fundamental has shifted. The air is different now. My mother's toast, meant to subtly elevate Sarah and sideline me one last time, became the accidental prelude to my own declaration of independence, my own undeniable validation. I didn't plan it like this. Not really. The timing was purely reactive. Her words pushed me to a place I hadn't intended to go. But standing there, holding the microphone, hearing the number echo in the stunned silence, seeing her face, it felt like the culmination of a lifetime of being underestimated. And the vindication, cold and sharp, was more potent than any champagne. My life isn't suddenly perfect. The money brings its own complexities, its own challenges. The family dynamic is forever changed, a volatile mix of residual resentment, forced admiration, and awkward attempts at connection. My mother tries harder now, asks about my work with a new, almost fearful respect. But the years of neglect, the sting of one daughter, they don't simply vanish. But I am seen now, truly seen. Not through the filtered lens of their expectations, but for what I have built, for who I am. The $200 million acquisition wasn't just a business deal. It was the loudest, most undeniable mic drop of my life. It was the moment I finally, definitively, stepped out of the shadow and into my own light, a light so bright it blinded the very people who tried to keep me in the dark. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.